Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Season 3, Episode 8 of Titans. So, I'm going to keep calling it Titans. I can't help it. It's just a knee-jerk thing to always just say it that way. So, Titans. This episode, I would say there's some good things about this episode, whether that be few and very few and far between. But, most of this episode was a bore to me. I was honestly just completely disinterested in this episode. And I was like, one, I have to finally rebuttal and kind of go back and just to say, well, I went back and looked at first season and second season of Titans. And I found out that, the second season had, 13 episodes. I'm like, well, then how many episodes is this third season going to have? Considering budget, considering this is now on HBO Max. Are they going to do 20-some-odd episodes? Are they going to, stretch it out to be very much like Batwoman? Are they going to have, 22-some-odd episodes of this? Or are they only going to go till roughly 13, 14, whatever, and call it a day? That's what I'm kind of interested in figuring out or finding out. If, how, because then I can say, they're going to rush to get this whole thing done if they only have 10 to 11 episodes. Then I can say that easily. And just be like, ha, ha, ha. But since I don't know, and it seems like there are cliffhangers to say that this show is to go past 8 episodes, that there's a big event happening. I'm like, so in other words, big event that honestly doesn't feel all that original. Let's say that right now. All honesty, though, there were some characters that I actually did enjoy within this episode. Whether they ended up getting snuffed out, let's just say, or not. There was some little slivers of things for certain characters that I did enjoy. And I'm not quite sure if I'm even mentioning this correctly. Have I been saying Black Fire when I'm talking about Starfire's sister? I hope I'm saying that correct, because I could be saying it wrong. But anyways, I could be saying Dark Fire or whatever. I could be saying any number of things. I don't know. Because I actually enjoyed Black Fire in this episode. I actually enjoyed her being with Superboy because that actually gives Superboy something to do. We're still on the fence about Beast Boy, though. If I have said some things that I will probably regret, saying how just much I was could we just kill off Beast Boy? Or could we I hate that character and I wish that he would just no longer exist. I've probably said some awful things about that character, but really it's just because the character just from pre-existing things does not add up to pre-existing things that have already been in a Teen Titans Go or a Teen Titans or whatever that is pre-existed for this character. So if you can't not put an equal thing or better into a live action thing, they should have went another direction completely. Would have been better off. Doesn't matter if this character is a staple consistently to be used in Teen Titans. They had Hawk and frickin' Dove. They could have gone another direction with this cast. They could have gone completely different directions, and they could have had someone else here besides Beast Boy. Whoever is to not just shell out some real CGI'd money. You could have had Metamorpho, and Metamorpho could be this gas superhero that eventually that would be one character that I would definitely have loved on Titans if they had Metamorpho. That would have been fun. And you could have had a Fantastic Four kind of character. That's Mr. Fantastic that slaps people with his arms all stretched out. He could have been the perfect social distance Titan just slapping people with his outstretched hands. Would have worked. Would have perfectly worked. Because he has that, like, he turns his hands into, like, anvils and smacks people with it. It would have been freaking awesome. That would have been a cool show. That would have been a cheaper show than the CGI thing that you have to do. But anyways, let's go into this. Let's go into the episode. Because, like, I really liked Tim Drake in this episode. I liked Tim Drake, and I liked Blackfire, and adjacent Superboy, just because they both had a good story together. Both Blackfire and Superboy had a good story together. And that's all that I liked about this episode. We have Crane, who is to all of a sudden find that Red Hood is to slowly but surely slip out of his hands. And so Crane is starting to realize how much that soon he is going to be a loser yet again. So he goes and runs back to Mommy, let's just say, to try and be able to work through some of his problems. Yeah, I think that's about a bulk of... We have another Starfire side mission today, where eventually Starfire's to have to go into the think tank, whatever that thing is to be called, that looks like a God, what is it? A suntan bathing booth thing. That's what it looks like. Then Sunfire got in, and then she is to just jot off to this one location. That is to eventually just lead her to going back with the Titans. To, like, I don't think there was a real resolution of that whole scene. But anyways, because we just have, like, Starfire who's like, hey, you guys, you guys? And then, like, we'll get to that in spoilers. Barbara Gordon is a person who evidently can't even... Does the GCPD even have money? Like, the kind of sad thing going on in the GCPD right now, where we just have the sploosh just come at, like... We have to do a whole entire story about Barbara Gordon having some, like, pipe burst kind of thing going on in the GCPD. We have to focus on that, where this water stain just keeps getting bigger and bigger right above her desk. We have so much story going on right now that we have to focus on Barbara Gordon and her water stain that's going upon her head, over her head. Wow. Great writing. And also, let's actually say it. They steal from Batman Begins. They seriously steal and do the exact same thing that Batman Begins does into this show. Man, is this show unique. Man, are they just they're reinventing the wheel when it comes to Titans. They're really just giving us something different, drastically different. I've never in my life seen what they do in this show ever in my life. It feels so unique. It doesn't feel like they're stealing from a Batman Begins movie at all in this episode. That's my biggest complaint. So, let's go into it. Let's go into that double five, because it's otherwise that time again to go into this coveted thing called Spoiler Time. Spoiler Time. It's about that time we get to spoil this episode. So, Jason Todd is to all of a sudden wear off from the fearless drugs. And also, Jason is also to wear off from really just wanting to be with Crane, because Crane is a little bit cuckoo for world domination. So, eventually, Jason Todd is to wear off his interest in being tied to Crane, because Crane is to consistently do his own thing. and then drag Jason along. And so, since Jason can't trust getting the huff and puff of the concoction that Crane had been serving him up, because Todd can't go and get another fearless drug from Crane, Todd is just like, you know what? I want to go and I want to see if I can talk to Dick and see if we can work something out. Immediately, we have Jason, who flops from like killing Hank in the other episodes, because this is already spoiler time, to Jason now in how many episodes later is now deciding, you know what, like, how about I just turn good again? Like, how about I just go back with the Titans? They bizarrely have a bat signal in the sky that's lit up that says a T on it. And they have to make a whole big deal about that. That's, hey guys, there's a T in the sky because Batman isn't in Gotham anymore, so we might as well just shoot out a T. It's just... I think I remember, like, Teen Titans, I think they did have that, or, like, I think they did have, like, a bat signal or something like that in the sky, but I didn't think that this show would do that. I thought that that was stupid. And why do they have to, like, seem like that is such a cool thing, which it isn't. So, interesting enough, we have Dick, who's talking to Barbara, and so supposedly Dick and Barbara are to go to this fancy-dancy place, which they never actually do. And so Barbara is like, God, I've just been like waiting all day to get a meal of something, and so I can't wait to go to this gala or whatever that we're going to go and eat something, Dick. And so Grayson is, funny enough, going and is to be making himself a sandwich, and Barbara's like, hey, what are you doing? Are you eating something? And Grayson is like, oh no, like I'm just fixing some batarangs. And Barbara's like, okay, I believe you. But yeah, so Barbara's like, I am so hungry, I can't wait to go out and eat, that I will eat this fish that are right in front of me if I don't go to this gala, whatever they're going to, and eat. So, coincidentally, they end up missing this whole thing anyways, because what ends up happening is that Grayson is forced to go out and is to have to go and kind of square things off with Jason, because eventually Jason is to call Grayson and kind of mention, like, hey, like, if you meet me at this place, like, hey, like, maybe I'll tell you where Crane is, and maybe we'll square everything off, and maybe everything will be all perfect. And that scene happens like right before Grayson like goes off to his motorcycle to eventually get hit by this truck, and all of a sudden Jason is to appear and vanish, and then Jason eventually calls Grayson to kind of make peace, just be like, hey man, I could have killed you, but I didn't. Like, I could have killed you just right then and there, but I didn't. So, truce? And Grayson is like, but you killed Hank. But Jason is like, but I could have killed you. So, truce. Like, I want to go back. I want to be a Titan again. I want to sleep in my old bed, kind of thing. So, Dick is like, oh, okay, we'll make it work. So all of a sudden, Grayson tells all the Titans, yeah, like, Jason's gonna get welcomed back. And everybody's like, so what now? Like, do you realize he killed one of us before, right? Like, is there another trick up his sleeve? Or, like, how can we trust him? But, like, everybody's like, we can't trust that guy. There's also to be this scene where Beast Boy is to go off because he can't fight anybody. So he has to have dialogue with people. He has to dialogue us to death. So Beast Boy is to go off and speak with Molly. And mention, has Molly kind of seen anything different about Jason since he's come back? And Molly is just like, well, like I remember that uh, he ended up helping me find like this lost boy, so yeah, Beast Boy is trying to ask Molly about things and trying to like ask like how much she really knows, and eventually this dialogue is really just going nowhere, and so let's push on. So Grayson was to get injured, and so Grayson goes to the hospital, and Barbara is there supposedly 10 minutes after Grayson was to arrive. So she missed her meal, and so now she's just eating Grayson's leg, and she's now a zombie. And because you killed her! You killed her, Grayson, with your not letting her eat, so she ate your leg. Hopefully you're fine with that. So, uh, so what ends up happening is that Tim Drake is to arrive to Wayne Manor, and so Beast Boy is to let Grayson know that this guy named Tim Drake has arrived, and evidently Tim Drake knows that Jason Todd is Robin, and that he knows that Dick Grayson is Nightwing, and he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. So Dick Grayson lets Tim Drake in for obvious reasons, that it just like, well, it seems like I know who these people are. Plus, it also doesn't help things when you have kind of like Beast Boy kind of answering the door either. So, anyways, Tim Drake is to have a talk with Grayson. And so here's the like a really interesting part. So it seems that Tim Drake can like profile or kind of match certain things with certain people. So Tim Drake is to mention that he went to the Flying Grayson show, and evidently he loved the Graysons so much that he ended up getting an autograph done of the Flying Graysons, I guess, before Grayson's dad and mother and stuff were killed. So Tim Drake is to mention that the Flying Graysons, the Graysons used to go and used to do this one hook maneuver that that Tim Drake has only seen done by two people, which was Grayson and Grayson's father. But then coincidentally, Tim Drake is to also see that exact same move being done by Robin. So he's like, I'm sorry, there's only been two other people in the world, and that was you and your dad is dead. So, Grayson, are you Robin? And then so we also have it where Tim Drake is like, well, yeah. And then years later, Nightwing came out, and Nightwing did the exact same hook maneuver. And wouldn't you know it, now there's four people that can bizarrely do that now, and one of them are dead, and one of them is Grayson, and one of them has to be that same guy who was Robin and Nightwing, because we had the whole story of eventually the first Robin becoming Nightwing, so it's got to be the same guy. So, like, we could have really had Tim Drake just say, like, dude, you're the exact same age as Nightwing, so you're Nightwing. You're the only person who can do that. So we just have Grayson who's like, hey man, he stole my move. Like, he stole that from me. It's like, sure. And then also we had Tim Drake who had eventually studied his family, and like knew, like, since he could figure out that Nightwing was Grayson, we also had Tim Drake, who ended up figuring out Bruce Wayne was Batman, and then also Jason Todd, like Drake was following Jason Todd and found out that he was obviously Red Hood, or he was really just also just Robin before all that, because he had seen him, like, and really just knew the skill set and whichever. So Grayson should have been like, man, kid, you have some tall tales. Like, woo, like, man, you could really just spin a yarn, I tell ya. Like, you know how, like, the cops would normally just try to fluff things off in all the horror movies? Just like, kid, you have seen too many late night action films. Like, you know? You have seen too many horror films, son. Like, we have it where just Grayson is like, yeah, like, he stole my move. Like, it's obvious that he stole my move. And it's like, sure he did. Sure he did. So, Tim Drake just continues to follow Grayson because Drake has real no home. Drake has real no home? That's not English. Drake doesn't actually have a home. There we go. That's actually English. We have also Tim Drake mentioning that his father was a police officer, and I guess Tim Drake had picked up a lot of skills from his father, sadly enough, who is now dead because the events of other episode. So I'm just waiting for either one of two things, with the exclusion of what ends up happening at the end of this episode. One, Bruce comes back to being Batman, and all of a sudden is like, hey, who's this kid in my Batcave? Khaleesi. Anyway, and then he just picks up this kid and makes him Robin. Or we eventually have Nightwing be Batman, and wouldn't that be cool? I would actually be fine if for a limited time we have Grayson Batman. That would be cool. If it was just a limited time to make everybody just at ease because there's a Batman out there, that I would be okay with that. But then again, I don't think they're ever going to do that because they could barely do Batman, let alone... They could barely do Batman, let alone, like, eventually do Grayson Batman. So, I don't know. Like, it's very iffy, but that would be really cool if they just did Batman Grayson. That would be cool. I would love that. So, and then just Tim Drake would eventually be Robin, if that really actually happens, or unless he's not going to really legitimately, because of what happens towards the end of this episode. So, we end up finding out that both Superboy and Blackfire are sleeping together. Wow, what a surprise that is, right? Like, immediately we have, like, Blackfire looking Superboy up and down. It's like, like, somebody is going to be needing to bump in some bed sheets. And so we have this moment, which I'm going to get to really quite easily, where Superboy is to mention to Blackfire that, like, she was his first time. And so Blackfire is just like, like, yeah, I guess I was your first time. Because he mentions, like, well, yeah, like, I've never had the ability of being with anyone else. Yeah, because no one wants Alien Boy. Because he's never had much of a story with anybody where it's just like somebody's looking him up and down. Nobody does that in the show because everybody's just like, oh, well, he's just this clone guy that really doesn't, like, need normal things like any of the other guys on this team does. And plus, there's a very large shortage of women in this in this roster. They need to get some more women in this, a lot more women in this team, or otherwise, like, people are just gonna be like, yeah, I'm never gonna I'm never gonna be with anybody. They need a Miss Martian. They need freaking God. Let's get that. We had like Deathstroke's like daughter, which technically gave Beast Boy a kind of relationship. But I would eventually love to see like if they eventually have like Terra and she doesn't turn evil. Wouldn't it be nice to just have a girl that tosses a rock every once in a while? And it's Terra, and then they end up having to just forcibly kill her off anyways? Wouldn't it be nice to also have like a Batgirl or something like that going on here? Another Batgirl or like a Spoiler? Like, let's have Spoiler be Robin this time around. Like, let's skip the whole Tim Drake thing and just have Spoiler be Robin. Spoiler is Stephanie Brown. Let's skip the whole Tim Drake thing. Let's just make Tim Drake Batman. Let's just toss that on him, so he can just be Batman, and we just skip through the whole like him even becoming Robin. Let's have him be Batman Beyond. Let's just put him in a frozen tube somewhere and just send him off to 50 years from now, where he forcibly has to become. I don't like Tim Drake. I don't care for the character, but like what they do with him here is interesting enough. So pushing on. So we have Starfire bizarrely, who is to do a little blocking, let's just say. Starfire is to make it to the bed of her sister, while Superboy and Blackfire are just banging it out, just bang it a bang. And so all of a sudden, Superboy uses his super speed to get out of the room. And so Starfire is to wake her sister up before, or Blackfire is to wake her sister up before, like, she is to toast her, because it seems like Starfire is going to light things up, let's just say. So all of a sudden, like, Starfire is like, hey man, I'm getting the visions again, and like, shouldn't they have like really have figured this whole thing out by now? Like, this girl is like a walking like nuclear time bomb hazard of a thing, and they're just letting this thing happen. Like, this girl is just like firing it up and killing people and all kinds of things. And we even have kind of Starfire, who's kind of questioning like if Blackfire is doing things. And we also had at some point where I think Blackfire was maybe using her powers, maybe against Superboy, maybe to persuade him, or maybe just to force him to eventually be a bad guy or to be on Blackfire's side. Maybe Blackfire is going to turn Superboy evil, and then they have to kill him off. Wow, that would be a really legitimately awesome story, where all of a sudden Superboy shaves his head bald, and he has that kryptonite razor, and that's how they turn him evil in the show. That would be cool. And they like, and he cuts his freaking Superboy shirt to show an L, just like in the comic books. That would be great. But they won't do that. Probably not. Not the same thing. Probably just like, hey, just have an L on the shirt. Just don't have to cut it. Anyways, pushing on. So eventually Starfire is to go off to eventually find herself in this tanning booth salon thing, tanning whatever thing. And all of a sudden she's in this theater, and that all of a sudden leads her to this location that like she ends up trying to figure out where this location is. And then while Starfire and Superboy were to easily just say like, hey, like, we'll help you, Starfire, like, hey, like, I'm like, and it seems like Starfire and Superboy are just like, or Blackfire and Superboy are easy, like really easy to be working with one another. Eventually, while Starfire is to eventually make it to the spot that she's supposed to be at, and Blackfire and Superboy walk away. Like Starfire is to mention, like, "Hey, you guys sleeping together?" And they're like, "Eh." Like, yeah, you were caught. Yeah. So Starfire knows. Great. So then they could just bang it out at Will's end or whatever. So, anyways, this is to all just push on, because we have Crane, who is bizarrely using this jackhammer to try to jackhammer through this one piece of metal that there is no ability for him to be able to do that. Because all of a sudden there's to be a fight out between both Jason, Todd, and Crane, where Todd is just beating the crap out of Crane and then running off. And so there seems to be some guy who ends up coming in and is just kind of like taking phone pictures of what's going on. And so Crane ends up getting up and is like, "Hey, like, what are you doing? What are you taking pictures of?" Like, and he kind of shows like, "Hey, man, like, this stuff shouldn't be here. What is this? There shouldn't be a way for you to get through here and cut through this place. You need a hefty welding thing the size of the sun, which, like, so it's not going to happen." So Crane kills this guy, so that way he won't be able to stop what he's doing. So Crane is to eventually, because of the loss of Superboy, or not Superboy, Crane is to be sad because of the loss of Red Hood, and he's like, "Jason, Jason, are you there? Are you still with me? Or are you against me?" So Crane goes off and boo-hoos to his mother. So he makes an appointment to be therapized by his own mother, where Crane is just talking and whining and crying about there's always Batman there to foil his plans. And so his mother is like not the nicest mother. He's actually just kind of she's actually just kind of giving him crap, like, "You won't amount to anything, Crane." Like that kind of moral support. So, like, Crane is just whining and crying to his mother about how it seems that there is never going to be a way for him to succeed because there's always this symbol of a bat that is to come and take all of his success away, kind of thing. So, like, this whole like therapy session with him and his mom, I was just like, I am just very disinterested in anything that they're to blibbity blob about, because I'm like, does Crane kill his mother? Does like, where does this escalate to? And it escalates to nowhere. It just really just has Crane having a reminder of his mother's disappointment in him, and who cares? So, pushing on. So, all of the Titans are to try and figure out where Crane is, because that's all they have to do in their lives. So, we have eventually Grayson, who is trying to go into these tunnels that it seems that Batman used to use fairly often. And Tim Drake is to appear and just be like, "Hey, Grayson, you're going down the Batman tunnels that Batman would usually use." And Grayson is like, "I don't know what you're talking about, kid." It's like, "Hey, what are you going down there for? It's all just to eventually try and talk to Jason, to eventually kind of reason with him or whatever. So, but eventually that forcibly just leads to Jason continually being aloof. And so eventually it pushes to have Tim Drake accidentally stumble upon what Crane is doing. And so all of a sudden Tim Drake is to see Crane going and hauling this thing into this hideout, and Crane is to also have dropped a gun, and so Tim Drake's like, oh man, like that guy had a gun, and so all of a sudden we see, because I'm passing through a lot of stuff here, because Barbara Gordon, her ceiling's leaking, who cares? The Teen Titans bat signal, who cares? The is there any other things that happen in this episode that really do matter? Not really. Not to my benefit of liking, in all true and honesty. So what happens here is Crane is to shoot Tim Drake in the back. Jason Todd is to find Tim Drake's body and is to try to do something, but then eventually all of a sudden the Titans swoop in, and so he ends up bailing. So the Titans are going and trying to try to help out Drake. But we also have a problem. It seems like Grayson has gotten a little bit of dose of fear gas, because it seems that when he was supposed to read the this letter thing to kind of check his vision, all of a sudden he ends up seeing these bat signal symbols instead of letters or whatever, and so Grayson couldn't read that until he can kind of smack his head to where the words were perfectly fine, and then so Grayson, all of a sudden, who is trying to revive or keep alive Tim Drake, all of a sudden, instead of seeing Tim Drake in front of him, Grayson is seeing himself in this bloody mess, where all of a sudden, Grayson's eyes just pop open. That's the thumbnail that I hope continues to stay upon this video, but who knows? Because eventually, sometimes they'll get changed, because forcibly, there's sometimes where it's yeah, why does this picture look a little bit blurry than it ever was before? What the is going on? I don't know. But anyways, I guess that's just well, yeah, because this app doesn't format well with these kind of things that you're using. Well, then they should come up with an app that perfectly works for thumbnails, or maybe there should be some update being done on whatever YouTube stuff so I can easily put this thing out. That would be great. Anyways, so or maybe that's just the way the apps are. They're just they just don't hold the perfect whatever thing, and I'm seeing something that doesn't look good, but is actually okay or whatever. Anyways, pushing on. Moving on. So Grayson is obviously not being able to help Drake all that well, so he just leaves Drake with Beast Boy. Yeah, the best person that you could possibly leave Tim Drake with, Beast Boy. The guy that can only do dialogue and can't fight worth a lick of anything. Leave him with Beast Boy. So the rest of the team all decides to go and try to find where Jason is, or is to try to find where Crane is. Either or, because they're trying to get two birds with one stone here. So eventually this team goes further and further into this facility to try to find either or of these people. And so all of a sudden, we have a fire that is to emerge within this facility, and when we look further into the parts of this fire, we end up finding out that it seems that Crane had dipped the the fear toxin into the water supply, and it seems that Firestar, with her explosion, ignited that that water supply to, I guess, become a inhalant for, I guess, like anybody who is to put on some water anytime soon is just gonna get splashed with fear toxin, or like basically like the sewers have probably all just dusted out every bit of this fear toxin. So this is Batman Begins all over again. And so Starfire mentions is like, did I just light up the entire city with fear toxin? And Grayson is like, I think you did. Like, fuck. Like, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? We just we also had that weird, bizarrish Jason Todd moment where Jason Todd was going to this, let's just say, shady place where you just see couples banging it out. And so Jason goes to this spot to try to pay these people, and these performers assumed that they were going to be banging it out, and so they were asking Jason Todd, hey, what position do you want us in? Do you want us wheelbarrow? What do you do? You want us like the puppet position? Do you want do you want wheelbarrow? Do you want clown? What do you want? Like, that's not what they said, but I was joking around. And so, like, do they want missionary? So Jason Todd is like, no, that's not what I want. I just want to talk. And so they're like, okay, sure, we can do that. And so Jason Todd wanted to roleplay and have the guy be Hank and have the girl be whoever Dove really was, or Dawn. And so Jason Todd was to apologize to Hank for killing him, and the guy of this scenario is just like, dude, I'm not going to listen to this. Like, I'm not going to do this. Like, no, like, I'm going to walk out of here. So all of a sudden, the girl who is playing Dawn is to just kind of mention that, well, like, hey, I've done some bad stuff. So she starts, like, talking to Jason to try to figure something out. And so the last thing that the girl says before the time is up and the curtain comes down, so to speak, she ends up saying, it's like, well, there's only one place that I know that would probably ever, like, forgive you of whatever you've ever done, and that place is home. And the curtain goes down, and Todd is just like, well, I've basically effed that up. Like, there's no real, true, legitimate home that is just going to take me in and forgive me for all my wrongdoings. So, like, I basically just ruined that. So, like, I guess, like, Todd was looking for answers, but there is no answers that way, Wolverine. I used a Marvel movie to get the end of a DC film, or DC show, because I used X-Men 2, X-Men United. There's no answers that way, Wolverine. There's no answers that way, Jason Todd. So yeah, I'm assuming, like, I'm kind of wondering if Jason Todd is like, he should go and just be like the Outlaws. Like, they should just have their own, like, spin-off, Jason Todd and the Outlaws. I wonder how that's gonna work out. Maybe not as good as the comic book ever did, but if it ever did do well, like, I think it did well in the beginning, but then eventually it just went Bruh. But then eventually, like, Bizarro came back on the team and like, hey, this is interesting, and then it went Bruh again, I think, because I don't know, Jason Todd, when eventually they changed his character in the comic books, just, like, they just ruined that character. And it basically became that they had to put other interesting characters out in that book besides Besides Jason Todd, that's a sad thing that Jason Todd was the least interesting character in his own story. So, but yeah, so Batman Begins plot is to happen within the other episodes. So we'll see where that goes on to be. Uh, I don't know. This show was just not a good episode. That's all I want to say. It's just this show needs to get better. This show needs to get better. Show sucks. I didn't like this episode. I didn't have real true interest in this episode, and I think there was a lot of times where I was just kind of like, "Hey, let's see what's on my phone," and also paid barely attention to what's going on in the show because there was no real action sequences throughout this entire thing. There was not one lick of anybody punching. Like, well, maybe there was a fight scene between Jason and Crane, but that was like a two-punch done kind of scenario. If you want to call that a fight scene, then we have some really severely low bars to just have to climb from in this show. So with that said, I think I've covered hopefully everything in this episode. I really just, like, the dialogue of the show is just, like, in one ear, out the other. It's just so awful. And none of it is something that I can care about. Like, the only thing that I can care about is anything that I repeated from anything. Like, hey, Tim Drake has an interesting thing going on here. I'll talk about that. Where he's just talking about Grayson and hook lines and maneuvers and whatever. But other than that, I'm just, like, I have no interest in a lot of this stuff. If it's new, if it's a new thing, then I care. If it's just kind of something where I'm going to feel like this is going to waste time, like the Grayson and the Barbara stuff seems like a giant waste of time to me, and it shouldn't. I should just be like, man, I can't wait for Grayson and Barbara just continue to be together because, like, yeah, freaking we want that Barbara and Grayson relationship because freaking, like, Batgirl and Nightwing, which we still didn't get in the other episode. I complained about it, and I'm still going to complain about it because we still didn't get Batgirl. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Blah, 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 blah. Goodbye.